cords of death surround me, and the torrents of destruction are overwhelming me in the darkness. When the snares of death are confronting me, oh, in my distress, in my weakness, I call, oh, in my distress, in my weakness, I call upon your name, I call upon your name, oh Yahweh. Rock in my deliverance, my strength and my mighty fortress. I love you, oh Yahuwah. In my desperation, I call upon your name. My rock in my deliverance, my strength and my mighty fortress. I love you, oh Yahuwah. In my desperation, I call upon your name, and from my enemies I am saved. The day of my calamity, when I'm set before the face of my enemies, I will sing, I will shout, I will lift my voice and cry aloud. Yahuwah is my shield and the horn of my salvation. Yahuwah is my shield and the horn of my salvation. Rock in my deliverance, strength in my mighty fortress. I love you, oh Yahuwah. In my desperation, I call upon your name. My rock in my deliverance, my strength in my mighty fortress. I love you, oh Yahuwah. In my desperation, I call upon your name, and from my enemies I am saved. I am saved. Yahuwah thundered in the heavens, the Most High uttered his voice. When I cried to Elohim for help, he heard my voice. Then the earth was shaking and the mountains were trembling before the great and powerful presence of my Elohim, who sends out his arrows. Yahuwah thundered in the heavens, the Most High uttered his voice. When I cried to Elohim for help, he heard my voice. And the earth was shaking and the mountains were trembling before the great and powerful presence of my Elohim, who sends out his arrows and scatters the enemy. Call upon your name, my rock and my deliverance, my strength and my mighty fortress. I love you, oh Yahuwah. In my desperation, I call upon your name, and from my enemies I am saved. I am saved. Yes, I am saved.
Gotta unmute myself. Good morning, guys. Welcome back to another Bible reading. I just love that way of starting these streams. I think that's the thing I'm going to do from now on. It's good to enter into his presence with worship. And as we get in the word, I just feel like that's appropriate. But anyways, without any further ado, good morning, GR Cleve, Impact Life. GR Cleve, Clement Clark, Impact Live. Thank you. I agree. Great hold music. Palmetto Paratrooper. All right. Bless you guys. Thanks for joining us. Let me share my scriptures with you. I'm reading out of the TS 2009 version, aka the scriptures. And there we go. So oops, I just opened up the wrong page. So we're picking up in chapter we're in chapter 5, but I like to go to the end of the last chapter we read and kind of recap where we're at. So right here we got Elisha is being brought bread, 20 loaves of barley, new ripened grain in his knapsack, and he said, "Give it to the people to eat." And his servant said, "What do I set before 100 men?" And he said, "Give it to the people to eat. For thus said Yahuwah, eat and have some left over." And he set it before them, and they ate and had some left over, according to the word of Yahuwah. Now we're in chapter 5, verse 1. And Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Aram, was a great man in the eyes of his master and highly respected, because by him Yahuwah had given deliverance to Aram. And he was a brave man, but leprous. And the Arameans had gone out on raids and had brought back captive a young girl from the land of Israel. And she served the wife of Naaman. And she said to her mistress, "If only my master were with the prophet who is in Shamaron, then he would recover him of his leprosy." And Naaman went in and reported to his master, saying, "Thus and thus spoke the girl who is from the land of Israel." And the king of Aram said, "Go, enter, and let me send a letter to the king of Israel." And he went and took him 10 talents of silver and 6,000 pieces of gold and 10 changes of garments. And he brought the letter to the king of Israel, which said, "And now when this letter comes to you, see, I have sent Naaman my servant to you, so that you shall recover him of his leprosy." And it came to be, when the king of Israel read the letter, that he tore his garments and said, "Am I Elohim to kill and keep alive, that this man sends a man to me to recover him of his leprosy? For consider now, and see how he is seeking an occasion with me." And it came to be, when Elisha, the man of Elohim, heard that the king of Israel had torn his garments, that he sent to the king, saying, "Why have you torn your garments? Please let him come to me, so that he knows that there is a prophet in Israel." So Naaman came with his horses and chariot, and stood at the entrance of the house of Elisha. And Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, "Go, and you shall wash 7 times in the Jordan, that your flesh might be restored to you, and be clean." But Naaman became wroth, and went away and said, "See, I said to myself, he would certainly come out to me, and stand and call on the name of Yahuwah his Elohim, and wave his hand over the place, and recover the leprosy. And not the Abana and the Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus." Are not the Abana and the Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Could not I wash in them and be clean? And he turned and went away in a rage. And his servants came near and spoke to him, and said, "My father, if your prophet had spoken to you a great matter, would you not have done it? How much more then, when he says to you, wash and be clean?" Then he went down and dipped 7 times in the Jordan, according to the word of the man of Elohim, and his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. And he returned to the man of Elohim, he and all his company, and he came and stood before him and said, See, now I know that there is no Elohim in all the earth except in Israel. And now, please take a gift from your servant. But he said, As Yahuwah lives, before whom I stand, I do not accept it. And he pressed on him to accept it, but he refused. And Naaman said, If not, please let your servant be given 2 mule loads of earth. For no longer is your servant going to make an ascending offering and slaughtering to other mighty ones, but to Yahuwah. And Yahuwah grant forgiveness to your servant in this matter. When my master goes into your house, into the house of Ramon to worship there, and he leans on my hand, and I bow down to the house of Ramon. When I bow down in the house of Ramon, Yahuwah, please grant forgiveness to your master to your servant in this matter. Excuse me. And he said to him, Go in peace. And he went for him some distance. And Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of Elohim, said, Look, my master has spared Naaman this Aramean, while not receiving from his hand what he brought. But as Yahuwah lives, I shall run after him and take whatever from him. And Gehazi pursued Naaman, and when Naaman saw him running after him, he came down from the chariot to meet him and said, Is there peace? And he said, Peace, my master has sent me, saying, Look, even now 2 young men of the sons of the prophets have come to me from the mountains of Ephraim. Please give them a talent of silver and 2 changes of garments. And Naaman said, Please accept 2 talents. And he urged him, and bound 2 talents of silver in 2 bags with 2 changes of garments, and handed them to 2 of his servants. And they bore them ahead of him. And when he came to the high place, he took them from their hand, and stored them away in the house, and let the men go, and they went. And he went in and stood before his master, and Elisha said to him, Where did you go, Gehazi? And he said, Your servant did not go anywhere. But he said to him, Did not my heart go with you when the man turned back from his chariot to meet you? Is it time to accept silver and accept garments and olive trees and vineyards and sheep and cattle and male and female servants? So let the leprosy of Naaman cling to you and your descendants forever. And he went out from him as leprous as snow. I was gonna joke and say, and that's where white people came from. Not really. Chapter 6, verse 1. And the sons of the prophets said to Elisha, See, the place where we dwell with you is too small for us. Please let us go to the Jordan, and let every man take a log from there, and let us make there a place to dwell. And he said, Go. Then the one said, Please undertake to go with your servants. And he said, I shall go. And he went with them and came to the Jordan, and they cut down trees. And it came to be, as one was cutting down a tree, that the iron axe head fell into the water. And he cried out and said, Oh, my master, for it was borrowed. And the man of Elohim said, Where did it fall? And he showed him the place, and he cut off a stick and threw it in there, and made the iron float. And he said, Pick it up. And he reached out his hand and took it. And the king of Aram was fighting against Israel, and took counsel with his servants, saying, My camp is in such and such a place. And the man of Elohim sent to the sovereign of Israel, saying, Be on guard, do not pass this place, for the Arameans are coming down there. The king of Israel then sent to the place of which the man of Elohim had spoken to him, and warned him, so that he was on his guard there, not once and not twice. And this greatly troubled the heart of the king of Aram. And he called his servants and said to them, Declare to me, who of us is for the king of Israel? And one of his servants said, None, my master, O king, for Elisha the prophet who is in Israel declares to the king of Israel the words that you speak in your bedroom. And he said, Go and see where he is. so that I send and get him. And it was reported to him, saying, See, he is in Dothan. And he sent horses and chariots and a great army there, and they came by night and surrounded the city. And the servant of the man of Elohim rose early and went out, and saw an army surrounding the city with horses and chariots. And his servant said to him, O my master, what do we do? And he answered, Do not fear, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them. And Elisha prayed and said, Yahweh, I pray, open his eyes and let him see. And Yahweh opened the eyes of the young man, and he looked and saw the mountain covered with horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. And when they came down to him, Elisha prayed to Yahweh and said, Strike this nation with blindness, I pray. And he struck them with blindness according to the word of Elisha. And Elisha said to them, This is not the way, nor is this the city. Follow me and let me bring you to the man whom you seek. But he led them to Shamaron. And it came to be when they had come to Shamaron that Elisha said, Yahweh, open the eyes of these men so that they see. And Yahweh opened their eyes, and they looked and saw they were in the midst of Shamaron. And when the king of Israel saw them, he said to Elisha, My father, should I strike? Should I strike? But he said, Do not strike. Do you strike those whom you have taken captive with the sword and your bow? Set food and water before them, and let them eat and drink, and go to their master. And he made a great feast for them. And after they ate and drank, he let them go. And they went to their master. And the bands of Aramean raiders came no more into the land of Israel. And after this it came to be that when Ben-Hadad, the king of Aram, mustered all his army, and went up and besieged Shamaron, and there was a great scarcity of food in Shamaron and sea, they besieged it until a donkey's head went at 80 pieces of silver, and 1/4 of a cab of dove droppings for 5 pieces of silver. And it came to be, as the king of Israel was passing by on the wall, a woman cried out to him, saying, Help, my master, O king. And he said, If Yahweh does not help you, where do I find help for you? From the threshing floor or from the winepress? And the king said to her, What is troubling you? And she said, This woman said to me, Give your son and let us eat him today, and tomorrow we eat my son. So we cooked my son and ate him. And I said to her on the next day, Give your son and let us eat him. But she has hidden her son. Sickening. Verse 30, and it came to be, when the king heard the words of the woman, that he tore his garments. And as he passed by on the wall, the people looked and saw the sackcloth on his body underneath. And he said, Elohim, do so to me and more also, if the head of Elisha, son of Shaphat, remains on him today. And Elisha was sitting in his house, and the elders were sitting with him. And the king sent a man ahead of him. But before the messenger came to him, he said to the elders, Do you see how this son of a murderer has sent someone to take away my head? Look, when the messenger comes, shut the door and hold him fast at the door. Is not the sound of his master's feet behind him? While he was still speaking with him, then see, the messenger came down to him, and he said, Look, this evil is from Yahweh. Why should I wait for Yahweh any longer? Chapter 7. And Elisha said, Hear the word of Yahweh. Thus said Yahweh, About this time tomorrow, a seah of fine flour for a shekel, and 2 seahs of barley for a shekel, at the gate of Shamaron. And an officer on whose hand the king leaned answered the man of Elohim and said, Look, if Yahweh is making windows in the heavens, shall his word come true? And he said, Look, you are about to see it with your eyes, but do not eat of it. But not eat of it. And there were 4 leprous men at the entrance of the gate, and they said to each other, Why are we sitting here until we are dead? If we shall say, Let us go into the city, the scarcity of food is in the city, and we shall die there. And if we sit here, we shall die. And now, come, let us surrender to the army of the Arameans. If they keep us alive, we live, and if they kill us, we shall die. So at twilight they rose up to go to the camp of the Arameans. And when they had come to the outskirts of the Aramean camp, look, no one was there. For Yahuwah had caused the army of the Arameans to hear the noise of chariots and the noise of horses, the noise of a great army. And they said to each other, look, the king of Israel has hired against us the king of the Hittites and the king of the Mitzrayans to come against us. So they rose up and fled at twilight and left their camp as it is, their tents and their horses and their donkeys, and they fled for their lives. And when these lepers came to the outskirts of the camp, they went into one tent and ate and drank, and took from there silver and gold and raiments, and went and hid them. And they came back and went into another tent, and took from there and went and hid it. And they said to each other, we are not doing right. This day is a day of good news. Excuse me. This day is a day of good news, and we are keeping silent. And if we wait until morning light, then evil shall come upon us. And now, come, let us go and inform the house of the king. And they came and called the gatekeepers of the city and informed them, saying, We went to the camp of Aram, and look, there is not a man or a voice of man, only horses tied and donkeys tied, and the tents as they were. And the gatekeepers called, and they informed the house of the king inside. So the king rose up in the night and said to his servants, Let me now inform you what the Arameans have done to us. They know that we are starving, so they have gone out of the camp to hide themselves in the field, saying, When they come out of the city, we shall catch them alive and enter into the city. And one of his servants answered and said, Please, let some take 50 of the horses that are left in the city. Look, they are like the entire crowd of Israel that are left in it. Look, they are like the entire crowd of Israel left from those who are consumed. So let us send and see. And they took 2 chariots with horses, and the king sent them in the direction of the camp of Aram, saying, Go and see. And they went after them to the Jordan, and look, all the way was littered with garments and weapons, which the Arameans had thrown away in their haste. And the messengers returned and reported to the king. Then the people went out and plundered the camp of Aram. So a seah of fine flour was for a shekel, and 2 seahs of barley for a shekel, according to the word of Yahuwah. And the king had appointed the officer on whose hand he leaned to be in charge of the gate. But the people trampled him in the gate, and he died. As the man of Elohim had said, who spoke when the king came down to him. And it came to be as the man of Elohim had spoken to the king, saying, 2 seahs of barley for a shekel, and a seah of fine flour for a shekel, at this time tomorrow in the gate of Shomeron. That officer answered the man of Elohim and said, Look, if Yahuwah is making windows in the heavens, is it according to this word? And he had said, Look, you are about to see it with your eyes, but not eat of it. And so it came to be for him, for the people trampled him in the gate, and he died. Chapter 8. Shalom, the tradesman. Good to see you. All right, we're in chapter 8 of 2 Kings. And Elisha spoke to the woman whose son he had restored to life, saying, Rise up and go, you and your household, and sojourn wherever you do sojourn. For Yahuwah has called for a scarcity of food, and also it is coming upon the land for 7 years. And the woman rose up and did according to the word of the man of Elohim. And she went with her household and sojourned in the land of the Philistines 7 years. And it came to be at the end of 7 years that the woman returned from the land of the Philistines. And she went to cry out to the king for her house and for her land. And the king was speaking to Gehazi, the servant of the man of Elohim, saying, Please relate to me all the great matters Elisha has done. And it came to be, as he was relating to the king how he had restored the dead to life, that see, the woman whose son he had restored to life, was crying. The woman whose son he had restored to life was crying out to the king for her house and for her land. And Gehazi said, "O master, O king, this is the woman, and this is her son, whom Elijah restored to life." So the king asked the woman, and she related to him. And the king appointed a certain eunuch for her, saying, "Return all that was hers, and all the increase of the field from the day that she left the land until now." And Elisha came to Damascus, and Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, was sick. And it was reported to him, saying, "The man of Elohim has come here." And the king said to Hazael, "Take a present in your hand, and go to meet the man of Elohim, and inquire of Yahweh by him, saying, Do I recover from this sickness?" And Hazael went to meet him, and took a present with him of all the good wares of Damascus, 40 camel loads. And he came and stood before him, and said, "Your son Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, has sent me to you, saying, Do I recover from this sickness?" And Elisha said to him, "Go, say to him, you shall certainly recover. But Yahuwah has shown me Yahuwah has shown me that he shall certainly die. So you shall recover, but Yahuwah has shown me that he shall certainly die." And he looked at him steadily until he was ashamed. Then the man of Elohim wept. And Hazael said, "Why is my master weeping?" And he answered, "Because I know the evil that you are going to do to the children of Israel, setting their strongholds on fire, and killing their young men with the sword, and dashing their children, and ripping open their women with child." And Hazael said, "But what is your servant, a dog, that he should perform this great matter?" And Elisha answered, "Yahuwah has shown that you are to be king over Aram." And he left Elisha and came to his master, who said to him, "What did Elisha say to you?" And he answered, "He said to me that you shall certainly recover." And on the next day it came to be that he took a thick cloth and dipped it in water and spread it over his face, so that he died. And Hazael reigned in his place. And in the 5th year of Joram, son of Ahab, king of Israel, Jehoshaphat was king of Judah. Jehoram, son of Jehoshaphat, began to reign as king of Judah. He was 32 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. And he walked in the way of the kings of Israel, as the house of Ahab had done. For the daughter of Ahab was his wife, and he did evil in the eyes of Yahuwah. However, Yahuwah would not destroy Judah for the sake of David his servant, as he promised him to give a lamp to him and his sons forever. In his days Edom revolted from under the hand of Judah, and made a king over themselves. And Joram passed over to Sair, and all his chariots with him. And he rose by night and struck the Edomites who had surrounded him, and the commanders of the chariots. But his people fled to their tents. Yet Edom has been in revolt from under the hand of Judah to this day. Then Libnah revolted at the same time. And the rest of the acts of Joram and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Judah? So Joram slept with his fathers, and was buried with his fathers in the city of David. And Ahaziah, his son, reigned in his place. In the 12th year of Joram, son of Ahab, king of Israel, Ahaziah, son of Jehoram, king of Judah, began to reign. Ahaziah was 22 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. And the name of his mother was Athaliah, the granddaughter of Omri, sovereign of Israel. And he walked in the way of the house of Ahab, and did evil in the eyes of Yahuwah, as the house of Ahab had done. For he was the son-in-law of the house of Ahab. And he went with Joram, son of Ahab, to battle against Ahazael, sovereign of Aram, at Ramoth Gilead. And the Arameans struck Joram. And King Joram went back to Yisrael to recover the wounds with which the Arameans had stricken him in Ramah, when he fought against Hazael, king of Aram. Then Ahazyahu, son of Jehoram, the king of Judah, went down to see Joram, son of Ahab, in Yisrael, for he was sick. So this isn't important to the context of what we're reading, but I'm noticing that there's Yisrael, and then there's Yisrael. And I'm curious if you guys have more information. Are these, I mean, it seems like the same word, just different spelling. But, of course, I could be wrong about that. So we are entering into chapter 9. But real quick, I'll just see who's joined us and say hello to you guys. Is everything coming through on your end? I should have checked that before I just read multiple chapters, not knowing. Shalom from Kentucky, Brizzles and Sizzles. Shalom. Two pots in. Are you taking it easy today, JS Genesis? Well, that was at 8:02. I mean, you got to be at 3 pots in by now. It's 8:27 now. That was 15 minutes ago. Buying crickets for your tarantulas, then going to turn some wrenches, drink my coffee at 5:30. Oh, drank your coffee at 5:30. I guess that past tense. Acupuncture with electricity in a couple hours. Well, that sounds delightful. Iron Man work, sounds like. Okay, sounds good, everybody. Hey, Bob and Glenna. Shalom. And Bethany, it's good to see you. Sounded good. Awesome. Appreciate it. All right, well, let's go ahead and get another chapter. Yeah, shocking. That's to you, Palmetto. All right, add this to the screen and getting into chapter 9, and we'll probably pick up chapter 10 tomorrow. Or actually, I like to stay off the internet to a large degree on Shabbat. So tomorrow we will skip, and then first day, aka Sunday, we will I don't know, I'll let you guys decide if we want to do morning or evening on Sunday. If you guys have a preference, just put it in the chat. AM or PM. Just go ahead and let me know. I'm going to get to reading in chapter 9. And Elisha the prophet called one of the sons of the prophets and said to him, "Gird your loins and take this flask of oil in your hand and go to Ramoth Gilead. And you shall go there and look there for Yehu, son of Jehoshaphat, son of Nimshi, and go in and make him rise up from among his brothers, and take him to an inner room, and take the flask of oil and pour it on his head, and say, Thus said Yahuwah, I have anointed you king over Israel. Then you shall open the door and flee, and do not wait." So the So the young man, the prophet, went to Ramoth Gilead, and came in and saw the commanders of the army sitting. And he said, I have a message for you, O commander. And Jehu said, For which one of us? And he said, For you, commander. And he rose up and went into the house, and he poured the oil on his head and said to him, Thus said Yahuwah, Elohim of Israel, I have anointed you king over the people of Yahuwah, over Israel. And you shall strike the house of Ahab your master, and I shall avenge the blood of my servants, the prophets, and the blood of all the servants of Yahuwah at the hand of Isabel. And all the house of Ahab shall perish, and I shall cut off from Ahab all the males in Israel, both those shut up and those left at large. And I shall give up the house of Ahab like the house of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha, son of Ahiah. And the dogs are going to eat Isabel in the portion of Israel, and none to bury her. Then he opened the door and fled. And Jehu came out to the servants of his master, and one said to him, Is there peace? Why did this madam come to you? And he said to them, You know the man and his talk. And they said, A lie. Reveal to us now. So he said, Thus and thus he spoke to me, saying, Thus said Yahuwah, I have anointed you king over Israel. And they hurried, and each one took his garment and put it under him on top of the steps. And they blew with the shofar, saying, Jehu reigns. Thus Jehu, son of Jehoshaphat, son of Nimshi, conspired against Joram. Now Joram had been guarding Ramoth Gilead, he and all Israel, against Hazael, king of Aram. But king of Jehoram had returned to Israel to recover from the wounds with which the Arameans had struck him when he fought with Hazael, king of Aram. Jehu now said, If this is your desire, let no one leave or escape from the city to go and make it known in Israel. And Jehu rode in a chariot and went to Israel, for Joram had laid up there. And Ahaziah, king of Judah, had come down to see Joram. And a watchman stood on the tower in Israel, and he saw the company of Jehu as he came, and said, I see a company of men. And Jehoram said, Get a horseman and send him to meet them, and let him say, Is there peace? And the horseman went to meet him and said, Thus said the king, Is there peace? And Jehu said, What have you to do with peace? Turn around and follow me. And the watchman spoke, saying, The messenger went to them, but is not coming back. Then he sent out a second horseman to come to them, and said, Thus said the king, Is there peace? And Jehu answered, What have you to do with peace? Turn around and follow me. And the watchman spoke, saying, He went up to them and is not coming back. And the driving is likely the driving of Jehu, son of Nimshi, for he drives madly. That would be a funny bumper sticker. Sorry. The driving, it's like the driving of Jehu. Then Jehoram said, Hitch up. And his chariot was hitched up. And Jehoram, king of Israel, and Ahaziah, king of Judah, went out, each in his chariot. And they went out to meet Jehu, and met him on the portion of Naboth in Naboth the Israelite. And it came to be, when Joram saw Jehu, that he said, Is there peace, Jehu? But he answered, What peace? As long as the whorings of your mother Isabel and her witchcrafts are so many. Thereupon Joram turned his hand around and fled, and said to Ahaziah, Treachery, O Ahaziah, or treachery, O Ahaziah. And Jehu drew his bow and struck Jehoram between his arms, and the arrow came out at his heart, and he sank down in his chariot. And Jehu said to Bidkar, his officer, take him and throw him into the portion of the field of Naboth the Israelite. Remember how you and I were riding together behind Ahab his father, and Yahuwah lifted up his pronouncement against him. Have I not seen the blood of Naboth and the blood of his sons last night, declares Yahuwah, and I shall repay you in this portion, declares Yahuwah. And now take up, throw him on the portion according to the word of Yahuwah. And Ahaziah, king of Judah, saw this and fled up the way to Beth Hagan. And Jehu pursued him and said, strike him too in the chariot at the ascent of Gur, which is by Yibleam. And he fled to Megiddo and died there. Then his servants conveyed him in the chariot to Jerusalem and buried him in his burial place with his fathers in the city of David. And in the 11th year of Joram, son of Ahab, Ahaziah began to reign over Judah. And Jehu came to Israel, and Isabel heard of it, and she put paint on her eyes and adorned her head and looked through a window. And as Jehu came to the gate, she said, is it peace, Zimri, killer of your master? And he lifted up his face to the window and said, who is with me? Who? And 3 eunuchs looked down to him. I'm confused by that. And 3 eunuchs looked down to him. And he said, throw her down. And they threw her down, and some of her blood splattered on the wall and on the horses, and he trampled her underfoot. And he went in, and he ate and drank, and said, go now, see to this cursed one, and bury her, for she was a king's daughter. So they went to bury her, but all they found on her was this. So they went to bury her, but all they found of her was the skull and the feet and the palms of the hands. And they came back and informed him, and he said, this is the word of Yahuwah, which he spoke by his servants Eliyahu the Tishbite, saying, the portion of Israel dogs are going to eat the flesh of Isabel. In the portion of Israel, dogs are going to eat the flesh of Isabel. And the corpse of Isabel shall be as dung on the surface of the field in the portion of Israel, so that they do not say, this is Isabel. Savage. All right. So that's going to conclude our reading for the day, picking up on the first day of the week. We will be in chapter 10. And I see we got AM, Bethany. Good to see you. Shalom, shalom. Okay. Until 10 a.m. Let's see. AM. Okay. Muscle spasms. Oh, that's what the electrotherapy is for. I wonder. I mean, dogs are often, the wicked are called the dogs. In this case, I would just assume, without any further information, that it was literal dogs. Personally, though. Okay, so I see AM. AM seems to be the way to go. I like it. It's a great way to start the day, so that's what we'll do. On the first day, we'll start in the AM. So probably might have to catch you on the replay, JS Genesis. The same group was assumed to be the ones eaten by the bears. Well, those were youth. So I don't know about that. Temple prostitute or... All right. Well, shalom. Thanks for joining us. Impact Life. He says, gotta run. Praying for you and your bloodline to 1,000 generation and provision. Shalom. Hallelujah. Appreciate that. Teenage youth. Maybe another book. Give us more information. I imagine teenage youth. It sounds like teenage youth would make sense. The ones heckling somebody. Probably not. But it could be. My son, he's a good boy, but I could see him out there heckling somebody if he was not a good boy. 7 years old, I could imagine myself out there heckling somebody. Yeah, don't make fun of bald people. Oh, youth was 20 to 30. I have never heard that. Shalom, Kermode Bear. All right, well, we're going to wrap up, and I hope you guys have a blessed Shabbat and productive prep day today. And we will see you guys on the first day of the week, aka Day of the Sun. Shalom.